This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good morning and welcome to day 4 of our FormsViewer training class. Today, we've got a couple clever techniques we're going to show you that will definitely add value to your forms. We'll start with the recap of day 3. And I know that we had a very strong day yesterday. We talked about dashboards. We talked about the one-click SMS text notifications that replaced Microsoft Flow. And I'm going to ask the first question here about that. I guess, Deanna, I'm going to start with you. So I don't have a question in this list here that you can see in front of you, but the first question I had in my mind was, why is one-click better than Flow? Well, potentially why?
A much quicker, streamlined process, so much more efficient for users.
Exactly, and the trick here is Athena there. I'm going to ask her the kind of the follow-up question, which is, what's the trick that makes this viable? One of the tricks.
He's making you.
I know. I'm on.
Sorry, Athena. Good morning. I can do it. Anyone else want? I mean, there's several things that this one-click showed. But there was one thing in particular that made it kind of, what I say, viable. David, do you remember what it was?
Is it the fact that it, sorry.
Go ahead, yeah.
Is it the fact that it times out within the,
Yes, that's it. Because it's almost impossible for a user to forward the text message, and if they did, they'd be complicit, right? So we have a record. So that fact that we're timing it out in 60 seconds or 90 seconds makes it, so you don't even need a code. Don't even need to send them a 4-digit code. We know it's them because they opened it within 60 seconds or 90 seconds. And that makes it even less work for them because they don't have to log in. They don't have to enter a code. They can just hit approve and maybe add some comments. David, were you going to say something? Sorry, I heard something there for a minute. Let's go to the next question. And I just.
I was muted.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Good morning.
No, I was just going to say what she said as well.
Oh, good, great. I'm glad that I wasn't the only one thinking that. But and Judith, I know you weren't there probably during that, and I think Arthur, you missed that as well. But the video was uploaded. I hope you got the links. Arthur, did you get the link for the video? Did everything work out okay in the end?
Yes, I received and watched it a few hours ago. Oh,
great. Did you have any questions on that video, on the one-click stuff? Because you weren't there yesterday. Did you have any questions or feedback?
No, I understood how it is done.
Great. And it's so exciting for us. We're doing this, and we're going to be doing the Smart Assistant. Get Smart Assistants for your forms using Microsoft's cognitive APIs or Alexa or whatever. Actually, I don't know if we can use Alexa's APIs because I don't know if Amazon provides the same level of support that Microsoft does. But we're so excited about these techniques that we just actually submitted talks to a conference in Sydney and New Zealand for May to do. We did a conference in Australia and New Zealand several years ago. And we just applied to do another talk on this technique there. I know it's kind of far away from everyone, but we're more than happy to show up at a user group, SharePoint user group, either online or in person, where you're at. It might be difficult, Arthur, to get all the way to Armenia and back, but we're excited so much by these techniques that we're actually talking about them whenever I do a SharePoint user group and presentation and when we go to conferences. So I did a SharePoint user group presentation in Washington, D.C. online a couple weeks ago, and we demoed this technique as well, and it was very well received. So a couple other questions then from yesterday. What is a dashboard? So we think about dashboards in SharePoint. What do you think of, and what was different about yesterday? And I'm just going to throw this one at you, Kiara, if you don't mind.
Sure, it's a place to manage forms.
Yep, Great answer. And why would you want to create one? Let's go to Lisa for that. Lisa, you have a definite need for a dashboard. I think you have one. Are you unmuted or are you busy? I don't want to bother you if you're busy, but so I'll answer this then. So the reason to create a dashboard would be, just like what Kara said, to manage forms, to allow you to quickly access forms that you need to act on. So the best way that the dashboard can open is to show you your forms, the ones that are assigned to you for action. So typically the dashboard will open up and it will grab the user information from user profile service, which we have not showed you how to do this in this class, but we have labs on it. You can definitely grab all of the user information in 365 or in SharePoint using the QRules get user profile command. And actually, we did this as part of FB Controls demo, the reusable template part on day 2. So if you're wondering, how do you get user profile stuff, take a look at the labs from day 2, and it's all in there. But you want to get the user's information, and then you want to query either the list, the library, or the database using that information to filter what's assigned to that person. Typically, it's active forms assigned to the person who is currently opening the form, because that gives them, what they need to work on right there. And then, but you also want to give them on the top a way to expand the filter and find something else that they might be interested in referring to or looking at. So why use FormsViewer for dashboards? Why is that interesting, Deanna?
Sorry, we were just discussing something else. What was the question about FormsViewer with dashboards? Yeah,
why use FormsViewer for dashboards? I mean, you can think of using a SharePoint list view or a SharePoint library view. You can think of using some other technique. I mean, there's been all kinds of dashboardy tools in SharePoint over the years, but none of them have really been easy to use. I mean, you could build one in SharePoint Designer back in the old days. Nowadays, it's Power BI. But why use FormsViewer?
So you can control what they see better.
Yeah, it's easy to control what they see. Great answer. Formatting is, I think, as Joanne showed yesterday, it's very easy to format the rows. And it's very easy to change it, to add filters, to add detailed information. You can even add links that open the form in a separate window. You can even add a master detail. We didn't show this, but we have customers. I was on a support call yesterday after our training, and they have a little dashboard, and they query customer information, and then they edit it. So they have I don't know, 100,000 different customers, and they query them, pull them into the form, edit it in the form, and submit it. So it's all one form. It's actually querying and submitting. And I think, Lisa, in your case as well, we have the ability to edit those items that people are querying. I think the metadata you can edit in your form, and that's really clever too. I'm really tempted to show another dashboard, but I do want to get done with 90 minutes today, so I'm going to stop that. But let me know if you're interested, and we can definitely schedule a follow-up. Why authenticate with SMS? I think we covered this before, but because it allows people from mobile devices to log in without necessarily entering a password. So it's more secure because they're using their face, their fingers to biometrically sign into their phone. And then they're also using a code, a 4-digit code, and that's a lot easier to type than someone's password. It's on demand. It's only given to those people who have access to that time. So it's a better, more secure approach. It also nicely gets around the license requirements for external users. So if you have external users, they don't necessarily need a full-blown SharePoint license per month to do that. And Microsoft has to provide that forever. They're not going to be able to take that away because all of their apps run in the same mode. This is the app-only mode in SharePoint. And the downside of the app-only mode is we don't know who the user is. So if you have an external user that logs in, obviously they don't have a user account, so you don't know who they are. They're just anonymous. But that's good enough because they can enter a code and you can look up their information from a list. So you can have all of their information in a separate list. You don't have to have a login for them. You don't have to have a user account for them. How do Forms and FormsViewer log into Twilio to send requests? This is a relatively complex question. I'm going to ask Kirby or Joanne. Do either of you want to respond to this question?
FormsViewer has that managed credentials page where you enter the Twilio values like the account ID and also the auth token to log into Twilio.
Great. I'm glad that you remembered the answer because I didn't, and that's why I asked you. I know I did these questions in September, but which QRules commands are used for making these requests? Let's see. And let's ask. That was you, Kirby, right? Or was it Joanne? I always your voices are so similar.
Yeah, this is Kirby.
Okay, so Joanne, do you want to take the next one there? Which QRules commands are used for making requests?
The make request command.
Duh, it's so easy. Okay, right. Okay, how do you debug your form when you have issues? We covered this in day 2. Let's throw this one at Arthur. Arthur, how do you debug your form if you're having issues?
You can add admin controls there and hide it from other users.
Yes, you can add an admin control. You can put a hidden button in the lower left-hand corner that has no border and the text is white, but you can still click on it. Or you can use the technique we saw yesterday. In the footer, you have the version of the form, and that's nice because then if you're on a support call with somebody, you're debugging it, you say, well, what's version do you have? Because maybe someone forgot to publish to production. I don't know. And that's using a button with a calculated value. And there's a special little command in that button too. So if you're interested in that, take a look at the labs from yesterday and you can see how we created that button to query the form template so to get the latest version number, because that's all built into the form. You can actually look it up inside of the XML. The XML has the version number of the form template in it. What is JSON? Let's ask a dev person here. Lisa, you're kind of dev. You're a dev. Are you with us yet, or do you want to respond to that? I think, Lisa, you're still muted, or maybe you're busy. David, do you want to give that a shot?
I'm not sure exactly. I know it's like kind of like a data format, correct?
Yeah. So JSON is I think it's Java simple object notation or something like that. I think the S might be different, but it's Java something object notation. And basically, what it is it's a way of it's kind of like XML. But it's like the new version of XML, and so it's got attribute value pairs. The thing that I think is worth pointing out here is that the InfoPath 2013 designer does not support it, but all of the web services that are coming online today do, like Twilio or Google or whatever, Microsoft's cognitive APIs. They're all JSON APIs, and so we added that support to FormsViewer. And the way you get to it is there's 2 commands. There's a JSON to XML command, and then when you're getting the JSON, when you're querying, you use the JSON to XML command. When you're then submitting to a JSON web service, you're going to use the XML to JSON, and that builds up your body of your message, and then you're going to use that make request, just like you saw in Twilio, to send it, to post it.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's it for the quick quiz. Today we are talking about pop-ups, overlays, and image scaling. So this is image scaling is a new part of the training. We did not do this in September. We did talk about pop-ups and overlays. And I'm going to do a little bonus demo to begin with, and then we're going to switch to Kirby, and she's going to show a demo of the pop-ups and overlays and the image scaling, and then we're going to show you how to do it. So the quick bonus demo is I've got this simple form in the designer. So the key thing here when you're creating forms is you want to make sure in FormsViewer that your compatibility is set to filler. That's so non-intuitive, right? Because everyone's using browser today, but FormsViewer supports a lot of filler commands that the browser didn't. And so you can access them by just making sure your compatibility is set to filler. And everything will continue to work in FormsViewer. Now, if you're publishing your form out to a library and you want to continue using it in both InfoPath and FormsViewer, which you can do, then you obviously don't want to do this before you publish. You want to keep it at the browser mode, which would be browser 2013 here at the top, web browser. You want to keep the form in that mode, but then right before you upload it to FormsViewer, you switch it to filler. And the reason why we're doing that is because we want to access one of these commands, these actions, that only exists in the filler, and that's the show message, right? So we're going to use that to show a message that is not supported in InfoPath Form Services, but FormsViewer does support it. The other thing we're going to show is this placeholder text. So placeholder text is something that was not supported in InfoPath Form Services, but we support it in FormsViewer. And the way you add a placeholder text is you just go into the dialog box properties for the text field, and you just type in your placeholder text right here. This is capitalized placeholder text. Oops. Hit return. Enter too quickly. Okay, so save our form and go to FormsViewer, upload it. You have to love how fast these things upload in FormsViewer. 2 seconds, not your 20-minute publish process. And then here's our form. And you can see there's the capitalized placeholder text. Not sure why I have an E there. I must have typed that in when I was entering the placeholder text. Sorry. And then here's the message, hello world, with the message. So those are the two really simple techniques that will allow you to, typing over placeholder text, that will allow you to add a little bit of extra usability to your forms. I use this dialog when I'm debugging things. So if you have a rule, you're trying to figure out where something is breaking, you can add the message before and after, say debug 1, debug 2, and then you can sort of isolate where a rule might be failing. And that's one good use of that. But in general, this show message thing is kind of ugly. We don't like this so much. It's going to use the browser default, and the browser default on Chrome looks okay these days, but it may not look as good on your browsers. So we're going to show two other techniques, and for that, Kirby, are you ready?
It's Patrick.
Yay. You have the baton.
Okay. Let me know if you can now see my screen.
Yep.
So for lab 1, I'm going to show you the prompt command in QRules. So you can use this command as an alternative to InfoPath's dialog boxes. So the one that Patrick showed you. So you can use this command, for example, if you want to inform users that the form is successfully submitted. Or another example is that sometimes users click the wrong button and we want to provide them a way to cancel so that the rules behind that button won't be executed. So having the ability to prompt users and provide them with options, we can prevent the users from clicking the buttons by mistake. So another good thing about the QRules prompt command is that you can customize the options that users can select or choose, unlike the InfoPath dialog boxes where you only have the OK button to click. So I'm going to show you how that prompt command or the prompt or the pop-up looks like. So let's just add data here. And then if we click the submit button, so this is the prompt that we're seeing. So it asks us if we are sure to submit the form. So if we click no, it will do nothing. But if we click yes, it will proceed. So I'm going to show you now how to add the QRules prompt command in your forms. So in the lab that we just provided, there's a sample form there, and here in the submit button, we will add that prompt command. So to build that command, we're going to the design button here in FormsViewer, and we'll just look for the prompt command. And as you can see here, these are the optional parameters, but there are 3 key parameters for the prompt command. The first is the title, which is the header of the pop-up, and then the text, which is the message that we want to say to the user, and then the type parameter, so we can select whether it's a yes or no option, or yes, no, cancel, or okay, cancel, or just okay. So let's build that. And for the text, are you sure you want to submit the form? And then let's just select yes, no. So let's just copy this, and then before the form changes the fields in the form, and after the validations, so this is where we will add the new rule, show prompt. And then let's just go ahead and set a fields value. So we'll set the command node to the one, or to the prompt command that we just built. And that's how easy it is to add the prompt in your form. So once you're done and you upload that to FormsViewer, you'll see the prompt after you click the submit button.
Kirby, do you need to add some kind of condition just in case I click no, so you don't run the rules afterwards?
Yeah. For that, we need to add another rule, so that if the user selects the no option, then it won't continue to execute the command. So let's try that. If the answer is no, so once a user clicks the yes or no button in the prompt, a value will be returned to the result node of QRules. So QRules will return true if the value is yes, and false if the value is no. So we're gonna the result node here. If it's equal to false, then we will not run the remaining rules. So we will just add a dummy action here that will set the stop field, or just will reset the stop field. So this is just a dummy action we normally use if we want to choose this checkbox, because if we don't add this, once we reopen the form, we'll see that InfoPath deletes rules that have no actions in them. So that's how you stop the execution of the succeeding rules. Okay. Patrick?
I think I just learned something. I think I didn't know that it removes rules without any actions. No wonder you guys are always setting those stop fields. It probably makes sense to name it something different, though, don't you think? I mean, you probably want to say stop if no, or something like that, right? And not if answer. But I would change the detail, the rule name, to be like stop if no, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, we can do that.
But I didn't realize that. I just learned something after all these years. I've been wondering, aren't they always resetting the stop? Okay. Wow. Okay, great. Keep going.
Yeah, that's it for the prompt command demo.
Okay, great. Do you want to just show them that again? I mean, I guess we could just, and I guess you just did show them that, so that's cool. Do you want to go and show them the overlay next?
Okay, sure. For the overlay, so that's for lab 2 of today's training. So here we have the uploaded Overlay. Let me just open that. So Overlay is a more advanced pop-up that we can build using FormsViewer together with CSS and JavaScript. So remember the filters we added in the dashboard yesterday? So instead of having them right above the dashboard, we will use the overlay technique and add them as part of the pop-up window. So that's very interesting, right? So here we added a search picture button, and here's another button that we already have in the expense report dashboard. And once we click this search button, it will show us the filter for our fields. So this is the pop-up or the overlay technique that we just added. And then you can also click this one for the date filter, and that shows as a pop-up as well. So
What's really
I'm going to
cool-
show you.
Yeah, what's really cool about this technique, I don't know if people were paying attention, but it was actually rendering the form in the background of the overlay after she tabbed out. So it's actually showing the results of the form. It's really nice because it shows the background, the form, and it's a much more modern technique. I think we see this all the time now on the web. And this dashboard is kind of not the. There's lots of ways you can use this overlay. We're going to show another technique in a minute, I think, where we alter the image on submit to scale it down, and that has a different look and feel too. This dashboard overlay is a little bit bold. It's like the blue, but and you can make it a little smaller so it isn't quite so expansive.
Yeah.
Yep. Carrie?
You can change the CSS style if you know how to use CSS, because we use CSS behind this overlay technique. So I'm going to show you how to add that to your form. So here's the, we're providing you a starter form for this lab. And let me just close this one. And then the first step is that we're going to modify the sections in the form and just hide and show the sections. So first is at the bottommost part, we'll add a section. So let's just drag this root node from our schema. And then within that section, let's add a calculated field that has an overlay text in it. Okay, let's add some colors to that. So this calculated field will help us later to locate the overlay section when we configure the XSL file. So we're also going to hide this by just adding a 1 value here for the condition. And then we're going to add an overlay field in our schema under the form logic. And now we're going to determine the buttons that should trigger the overlay. And that's the one I showed you, the search button. We're also providing that in the package. This one, and then let's add a picture button in the form. And let's give it a meaningful name. Search, overlay search. And then next, for the date filter, we're going to select this one, and wait, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm using the correct okay, sorry about that. That's an old form that I used. So here's the correct starter form. Okay, so this is the new one. Sorry about that. I'm just gonna create that again quickly. Calculated.
It's always good to see it twice.
Yeah.
Helps with the retention.
Yeah. So the overlay text, and then hide this.
I guess hide's kind of like those rules done in actions. You have to have some condition to hide it, or
Yeah.
else it doesn't work.
And then next one is the picture button. Oh, I forgot to add the overlay field. Okay, so next is the search. Okay, and for the date filter, we're going to change its name to overlay date filter. And next is we're going to add rules in the button to show the overlay. So we're going to set the overlay when the user clicks those buttons. So set the overlay in the form logic to search. And then for the date filter, same rule, but the value is going to be date filter. So next is we're going to drag these sections to our overlay section below. So I'm just gonna cut this and paste it in here. And just bring this. Okay. And then next is we're going to hide these sections by adding a formatting rule here. So if the overlay is not equal to search, then we will hide that section. And for the date filter, same rule. Overlay is not equal to date filter. So let me just check that again. Okay. So next is, after that, we'll save the form. Save our form. Let's rename it. And we're going to, yes, Patrick?
Everybody's wondering, how can you add an overlay section to your form and have it pop up like that? Where's the secret sauce?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to change the source files here to add that. So after exporting the source files, we're going to find this the XSL for this page or the XSL for this view. So we are currently in 6th pagination, so we're going to find that. Okay, so this is the one. And then after that, we're going to locate the overlay. calculate it.
Let's take a quick stop for a second here. Just recap what we just saw. So we're using this export source files from the publish command to extract all of the detail files from your solution template. So the solution template, the form template, the XSN file is actually a package. It's a cabinet file that includes all of these different definition files that control how your form looks and behaves. There's a manifest file that includes the operating manifest of the form rules, what the files are in it. There are a lot of image files. You can see we've got some duplicate images here that you can probably clean up. We got the XSDs down below, which are the schemas for the data connections. And we've also got these things called XSL style sheets at the very bottom. And those correspond one-to-one to the views in your form. So this is where we kind of jump off into the Power User Plus scenario. And the key thing to point out here is that when you start dicing the XSLTs, you're going to be using a knife that could cut you. So be careful how you're changing this, because if you make a change to the XSL and it breaks, then you're going to be like, what happened? Because everything's going to break. So be very, very careful. That's the caution here. Go ahead.
Yep. Thanks for explaining that further, Patrick. So here's the overlay that we just added earlier, the overlay text, and we're going to take note of the mode right above the overlay. So this is the mode in here. So let's copy that and find it in this same file. So we're going to search for this kind of line, so the apply templates, and what we're going to do is to enclose this div tags to additional div tags. So the first one would be with the ID overlay, and the next one would be the overlay section, which is the actual pop-up that we're seeing. And then let's just add a closing tags for those.
And this is all in the document, so it's all documented, right, Kirby? So
Yes. And then once that's done, let's save the file. And also, we're going to search for the buttons, which should trigger the overlay. So the name of our buttons are overlay search and overlay filter. And in here, we're going to add an on-click parameter, the value on. So this is for the JavaScript file that we're adding later in the form to activate the JavaScript code. So overlay date filter.
So the secret sauce is really, I guess it's 3 things or 4 things. It's adding that extra div around the apply templates for that section, and it's adding the on-click handler. And then the third thing is what you're going to show next, which is the JavaScript file that has the on-click handler, right?
Yeah. So here, once we're done with the changing the XSL file, we're going to open the manifest file here that contains all of the changes that we made with all the files in there. So in here, we're going to import the overlay CSS and the overlay JavaScript file from the package. So I'm just going to show you quick how that looks like. So here's the CSS. So as you can see, this is just a short CSS file or code. And then the next one will be the JavaScript. So it's just a 7-line JavaScript file for the on and off of the functions of the overlay. And we're going to, once we have imported those files in here, we're going to add the load resource in our finished loading node in Qdabra rules. So load resource, this is for activating those files. So it works in our form once we upload it in FormsViewer. So let's go ahead and click the command node. And for the load resource command, we need the name parameter and just add the name of the files in here. So this is for the CSS and another one for the JavaScript .js. So once that's done and added, let's save our form.
So the key thing to point out here is that when you go into that more expansive, exported mode where all the files are separate, you can edit those individual files like you saw Kirby do with the XSLT. But in order to reconstitute or to resave it as XSN, you just right-click the manifest.xsf, go into Designer again, and then do a file save as XSN, and then it will actually repackage them up as an XSN that you can upload.
Yep. So now the overlay should work. Let's see. Okay, so here's our search button. When we click that, okay, so now we have the overlay, but we have a problem with the layout, and also we don't have a way to close that overlay. So what you can do is just in your form, just add a close button and just add and export again the source files and find that XSL file again and search for the name of the close button, and then you just add the on-click parameter again with the off value. So that's how you add the JavaScript function for that close button. And then for the CSS, to fix this overflowing table, you'll just change this width to, let's say, about 70. So that's how you update or change the overlay to make it look more perfect. So yeah,
can you walk through that real quick? I know it's a little more extra, but can we just add the X? Do you have time to do that?
Okay, sure, I can do that. So in here, in this part, we'll add. So since this is our overlay section, let's add that close button. Add another picture button. And then let's rename this again. Click the close button here. And once that's added, let's save the form and publish again and export the files. So let's just delete this first one and just add another source folder for that, for those files. And then let's look for the view again, the 6 pagination. Yes, let's reload it and look for the overlay close button. Okay, so here's the button, and let's add the on-click off parameter and then save that again. Okay, before saving, we will need to close this form first. Okay, so once that's saved, let's open again the manifest because we added a change to
Can you change the CSS first? Change the CSS. Oh, you did. Did you already change it?
Oh, sorry. Yep. We'll change the CSS. Change the CSS here and make it 70. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Okay, now it's saved. And let's reopen the manifest file. And then resave again to our test form here. Okay, so we're done. Let's go ahead and upload our form. Okay, so the overlay should now be fixed and we should now be able to see the close button. So we have a way to close the overlay section. Here's the dashboard and click again. Okay, so it's fixed. So that's just how you apply the overlay technique in your form. So all of those instructions are there in the lab. Excellent.
Way to go. Okay, let's turn around and see if we have any feedback for this. And thank you so much, Kirby. Finished. You just made it into home base. You're done. And that was an awesome job. You've done a great job all week, and really impressed with your ability to quickly fix those issues. That was very quick. Okay, let's just ask any feedback on this demo that we just saw with the overlay technique. We're going to do one more demo. In fact, Joanne, if you're ready, I will switch over to you to show the scaling of images. And this technique, once again, I want to just mention one more thing here. This is a relatively advanced technique. The overlay is, we're not talking simple here, because you do have to open up the form files. You have to make those changes. You have to dice the XSLT with your knife. Make sure you don't cut yourself. And then keep in mind that in order to save that XSLT, you're going to have to close the info path designer because it has a lock on the files. When you export source files, there's a lock on the file, and that's why she had to close the designer to get the XSLT to save from Notepad++. Okay, so Joanne?
Yep. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the version of the expense report where we added a function called AlterImage command that will allow the users to alter their receipts. If they attach a very large receipt, they have the option to scale them to a different size just to lessen the weight of the form. So I'm just going to show you how that looks. It's also going to pop up in an overlay just like what Kirby showed earlier. So let me submit this form. Okay, so that's the resizing section that's showing in an overlay pop-up. So I can select whichever I want here, which size I want. I can make it small, 320 by 240 size, right? Pixel size, or medium or large, or just ignore it and select actual size. So in this case, I want to resize it to small because the receipt that I attach here is, I've taken it from my mobile phone, and my mobile phone is taking a very high resolution images, just like this. As you can see, this is the actual dimension of the original image. So just taking note of that before we resize it. So I will click that now. So that is the prompt that we showed you in lab 1. So I will click yes. It's just basically asking me if I'm okay with resizing all the image or all the receipt attachments to this size. Okay, proceed. So as you remember, the expense report is also rendering the form in PDF format. That's why it's doing that processing. So let's wait for that. And after it renders the form, it will also submit to an attachment folder right here. So that's the PDF file, and that's my receipt. Just wait for it to submit, okay? So when it's submitted, I'll just refresh the attachments folder, and the attachment folder should have the PDF file and the picture file that I just submitted. Okay, but the picture file is not here. I'm not sure why.
It looks like it's there. It's the one right there. That one right there.
Okay, let's try that. So I'll download that and let's see if it's now resized. Is that my receipt? Let's look for file info. Yes. So that's the dimensions now. So you can see how FormsViewer can actually help you resize your form using the AlterImage command.
Can you show the image? Sorry, Joanne. Can you show the previous image next to it to see the difference in the resolution?
Yes. So this is the first dimension for my original image.
Totally different resolution of that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I guess one thing to point out here is that we're just using one dimension. We're keeping the aspect ratio. So we're using that first dimension, the 320, as the horizontal. So if the image is a different shape, it won't make it hard to read. It'll actually conform with the aspect ratio of the original image, even though it says 320 by 240. If the image ended up being really super long, like in the case of the receipt, it's not going to scrunch it up to make the text look weird. Now, one other thing to point out here, is a very good quick demo, Joanne, but one thing to point out here before you do the show them how to do this is there's two things, I think. One is that if you're doing optical character recognition, in other words, if you're trying to take a document and scan it in and get all the text out of it, right? So this is image to text processing using the Google API that we've demoed in previous webinars. Then you're going to want to keep it above 1024. So there's, I think, 1024 or whatever the actual size. Now, obviously, for submit purposes from a cell phone device, the smaller the better, right? This is why when you send an email with a picture attached from your phone, it says, are you sure you want to send a 10 megabyte file? And you can have the option to scale it. This is a very similar technique. The other thing to point out is that overlay that you saw is totally customizable. So you probably wouldn't want to say resize. You'd probably want to say, are you sure you want to submit the image? Choose the size of the image you want to send, or something like that, to be a little bit more easy for the users to read. Joanne?
Okay, thanks, Patrick. So I'm now going to show you how I apply that to my form. So this is the form that we provided in the lab. If you have the folder, you can right-click on the lab 3 after AlterImage, start, and then click Design to open that. So first things, you need to put the section at the bottom because we're displaying that in an overlay. So click on the main data source, put your cursor here at the center bottom, then right-click and then add a section. Then for this example, I was just adding at least 7 rows for the placeholder of those buttons that you're seeing. So here, just formatting this a little bit. Okay, then add a button, a regular button, and change the label with that small, and then let's change the width to 100%, like that. And sometimes I just like to resize the section so the overlay is a little bit smaller. Then I would right click on this and add some shading. And I normally would not use the border.
That's your special Filipino font, right?
I don't know. It's in my info format. I just like it. So after creating that first button, you will make 3 copies of it. And then just change the label for the medium. And this one is large.
People didn't realize they're going to get InfoPath training today as well.
Size. Okay. So after that, you're going to add another picture button on top for the close button. Okay, I already have that as resource file. Just resizing that. Okay. So there's your section. And the next thing is that you need to add rules for the buttons, right? So what are the rules? So before we add that, let me show you the form logic. So go to form logic actions, and you can see we already have a field here called AlterImage. So this already contains some rules. So when you get to the lab, just take some time to study what these rules are for. So the fields are AlterImage, and there's an attribute under that called width. So the width, for the width, you already have the rules here. So it's just stopping if it's blank. So that's the stop there that Kirby showed you a dummy action, right? So if the width attribute field doesn't have any value, it will not run this other rules down here. But if it contains a value, it will prompt the user. That's the prompt we saw earlier, asking if I'd like to resize all my images, right? And then if it's a no, if the user selects the no button in the prompt, it will not proceed. And this is the action that triggers the AlterImage command. So what this does is that that dot is pointed to the AlterImage, and it's set to the value go. So that is the trigger for our AlterImage command. So this is the AlterImage command. Again, it stops if it's blank, resets itself, and this is the resize rule that we need to enter the AlterImage command. Okay, so to build the command, go to Command Builder, type in AlterImage, and I already practiced my demo earlier. So first, for the image expat, that's the first parameter we're going to use. So go back to the form, go to main data source, expand this group, and right-click on the files. That's the attachment control or picture control for our receipts. So copy expat, and then paste that here in that text box. Another parameter that we need is this width, and we're going to choose dynamic because it's coming from form logic. Okay, you remember that is under actions, AlterImage, and this attribute field, and click confirm. The other parameter that we need is this maintain proportions, that is just set to true, and then you're good to go. That's your command. Copy that to clipboard. Let me go back to the form logic, alter, field resize. Okay, that's where our command is being set. And verify formula. Formula doesn't have any errors. Click OK. Okay, so after you run the AlterImage command, you need to reset the width. Just set it to blank. Okay. So if you save that and upload that to FormsViewer, it will not yet show in an overlay, but the section will be displayed at the bottom. But I'm not going to show that to you. So this is just for the purpose of explaining to you how that works, right? But before that, I'm going to show you how to add or how to set the width for your buttons. So go back to the section that you just created and add a rule to the button, to each button. It's called set width, and add an action to that, setting the width to the specific or to their corresponding width, right? So for the small button, you're setting it to 320, okay? And then I just added a close rule here that is closing the form when they clicked it, or after the resizing is done. Okay, then just repeat the same with the rest of the buttons, setting that to their corresponding width. So for the medium size, it's 640, large is 1024. And for the actual size, we're not changing the size, but just triggering the submit button or the submit field here to go or to execute the rules. So that's what that's for the resize section. So any questions so far?
Just one question for me, Sharon. This is really good. How do you submit if you click on small? Where's the submit for that?
Oh, the submit for when you click on that.
Oh, it's in the AlterImage. I got it. Okay.
It's after the width. Submit will be triggered right here.
I think a comment here for everyone who's still listening to us. Thank you for being so patient. This is a great example of how to centralize rules in form logic, and you can see the benefit is that rather than have all these rules for each of the buttons, Joanne's just setting the 320, 640, 1024, and based on that, it's executing the same logic in one field in form logic. So when we say centralized, we mean the rules that do all the processing are underneath those width and AlterImage fields. They're actually tied to the fields. When the fields change, it runs logic. And so the buttons themselves just have the which option are they choosing, small, medium, or large. And all the logic is the same, except it's just passing value to them. This is a great example of centralizing logic. And centralizing logic is good because it allows you to debug things much more easily. You know exactly it's only in one place to debug it. The other benefit is that if you have to change a button, you don't have to change every button. If you have to change the submit command, you're not going to be changing every button. You just change the submit logic in the form logic. And we've done webinars on centralized logic. If you're interested in learning this technique more, go to our education webinars on our webpage and just search for centralized. And I think Mel Clemente did a webinar several years ago on this. We might have done one recently as well, but I'm not sure. So let's just ask questions quickly. And Joanne, thank you so much for that wonderful demo. Can we switch back to the slides? Do you have anything more to show, or should we switch?
Yeah, please go ahead and switch back to the slides.
Awesome demo. So just a quick recap. We showed prompts, overlays, and altering an image, which is a new command that we added in the November release of FormsViewer. It also exists in the on-prem version. The prompt is easy to add with QRules. It's just prompt. You have a bunch of options, but you can't customize them. The overlay is very customizable, very beautiful, but it requires some Power User ++ knifing skills, some dicing skills, whatever you want to call it. You have to go into the XSLT. It's a little bit more difficult, but you've got the lab, so you know how to do it. Altering an image is really important when people are taking photos from their cell phones, because the cell phone is going to default to a really high resolution. So you're going to definitely need that command to make the form submit faster, especially if you have repeating tables with lots of images. And there aren't any cons, so not that I can think of. Any questions on this? Let's just quickly go around the table here, and we did our demos, and let's just ask if you have a question or some feedback on these techniques today. And I would like to start with, let's see, Kiara, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any questions, but thank you for the demo. It was very good.
Okay. Any takeaways for the day, the week?
No, I mean, in general, there's a lot of good features. I'm excited to start thinking about them with upcoming projects.
Okay, great to hear that. David, what do you think?
I think today. Hello?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think the overlay feature is very very nice to have, especially when working with forms, because I know a lot of times in the past we have had users where they're trying to fill out a form and they forget like a required field, they get a pop-up, and then it's all this stuff in the error message that they don't understand. So I think with the overlay feature, it would be a lot easier to communicate to them exactly what it is that they need to do in order to submit the form. So I think that's going to be definitely a very helpful thing in the future. There was a lot of features throughout the week that I think will definitely be very helpful in the future. Once I get to practice with this a little bit more, definitely going to be putting a lot of those into use, hopefully.
Well, thank you. Keep in mind that for validation, validation rules are not supported in FormsViewer out of the box. So you have to use the technique that we showed in the FormsViewer sample, which is to use a secondary data source. And that should be pretty obvious from the sample. But if you have questions, we've done webinars on validation. You have that workaround. So even though we don't support the validation rule as a type yet, we will this year sometime. You can use that workaround. So
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of doing. So thank you, I really appreciate it.
Oh, we're glad to have you in the class this week. Thanks for going second. Deanna, Athena, any feedback, comments for us?
I think that it's a very useful tool. Scaling images definitely has its purpose to be able to see them like a thumbnail versus having them distort, and having a wide variety of users who may be using different kind of methodologies to take those pictures or upload them, whether they have a high resolution from their camera phone or they scanned it or other.
Yeah, great to hear that. Athena?
That was Athena, so I'll go to Deanna now. Everything I saw today was new for me. I keep wanting to hit myself because I'm like, why didn't I know about this pop-up response feature before? Is that new to FormsViewer, or did you guys have that capability in QRules?
Yeah, everything you saw today is new to FormsViewer, so don't hit yourself in the head too hard.
Fair enough. But yeah, I can see, because I know in the past there's been quite a few times where we've been working on a project and I'm like, man, I wish we could have a pop-up that you could submit a response to. And I love how you can use the CSS to customize the overlays, really awesome features. I really like them.
Cool. Great to have you guys here this week. And let us know if as you start working on these techniques, if you have any questions, we're here to help. And we're going to be making all of this available as a one package on InfoPath Dev. And we'll be sending the video for day 4 in a couple hours. And as you're working through the labs, don't hesitate to ping us. We would really love to help you work on these and get your forms upgraded to the new features. Judith, did you have any feedback for us?
actually really looking forward to being able to use the dashboards because I know that there's a lot of people that ask for that. So we'll be very interested to take advantage of some of those features. I do have a quick question for you and wonder if you've heard anything about Flow and Power Apps in the government tenant.
I have not. I do know that they just announced 2-3 weeks ago that they're going to be charging $7 a user per month for Power Apps, the regular, not the canvas-driven apps as opposed to the model-driven apps. That's a new change. They had Power Apps free for 3-4 years. It finally became viable last year, so I guess they figure they're going to monetize it. But I don't know exactly when they're going to be launching the stuff for the government tenant. They should have done it already. I'm not sure why they haven't. Maybe they're working through some kind of regulations and requirements. I'm sorry, I don't have any more information on that. I can ask Hillary and see if she knows. We do have a lot of government customers out there in 365 even. I've got a call with DSHS or DHS. I forget how they name themselves later today. And they're moving as well, but sorry, I don't have an answer on that.
That's fine.
Yeah, and we're here to help. I've got a lot of dashboard demos. If you're wondering how to do a dashboard for a calendar, I can show you a demo of that. There's lots of cool techniques. The dashboard that we showed in the training this week is relatively simple. It's something you can create from scratch within like 30 minutes. But we can do much more. So there's a lot of really complex dashboards techniques out there that don't require a lot of time. And that's really the benefit here, is that we're really trying to save you time and money and education costs and migration costs and all that stuff. Not saying that you're going to be using Power Apps, you're going to be using Flow for sure. Those are tools in your box. But here's just another tool that might make it easier and might give you a little more lifespan out of your current investment. That's really our hope here. And of course, we're going to be supporting this and adding features to it and keeping it low cost. Indefinitely, for 10 or more years in the future and more. Obviously we've got some young staff here that are going to be continuing to work with you, and even in the distant future when all the robots have taken over. Lisa, are you here? Do you want to ask any questions or give us feedback? I know you were kind of muted earlier, but I don't want to ignore you in case you have feedback.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Sorry about that earlier. No questions. Just really appreciate the training. Definitely plenty of things to think about. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And last but not least, Arthur, thank you for staying with us. Any questions or feedback for us this week?
I just want to say thank you to you all, to Joanne, to Kerry, to you, Patrick. I learned many new things during these 4 days.
Well, thank you again. And
I'm learning something new.
That's great. And I definitely want to underline that last comment. And I really want to thank you, Joanne and Kirby, because you guys did an incredible job this week. And the training success this week was because of your work. And so and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and feel free to start late on Monday if you want. Thanks for being here late Friday night. And we'll get everything uploaded, and once again, if you have any questions or comments, we're always here for you, so don't forget to send email or reply to coursemanager@qdabra.com. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.